his current position as senior delivery analyst with a major Canadian insurer, he is engaged in enhancing the delivery of enterprise technology solutions and services through leadership of improvement initiative that encompasses people, process, and culture. He is dedicated to human capital development and is a part of several forums, local and abroad. They are committed to guiding and enabling young people to develop and maximize their potential. He is a devoted husband and a father of two very active, attractive girls, and considers his family his most important asset. Can you please help me welcome Joshua Atimari, please? Also, can we have Ms. Esther Abraham to join him, please? And Isaac Oluwalafe. Okay, to anchor this program, I actually turned it down because someone shared out of my fees with me. So it's going to be anchoring this program. And it's nobody but the person of Dr. Ebere Morgan. Dr. Morgan is a leadership consultant, executive strategist, professional coach, author, educator, and communicator. He advances, yes, there is more, we have to cut it short. He advances thought leadership in multiple professional disciplines, including clinical, neurological health leadership, healthcare strategies, research, leadership development, and strategic foresight. He possesses a wide international exposure as a professional and academic under several healthcare, business, and leadership, bringing added exponential value in various professional and organizational contexts. He sits on various corporate boards and advisory councils at local, provincial, and international levels, where he learns his critical skills, experience, and acumen in system governance, policy creation, development, and implementation. Dr. Morgan presently deploys unassailable competence, intellectual horsepower, electric knowledge, and sound expertise in generating effective powerhouse and sustaining transformational change to people and organizations across continental development. A dynamic communicator, Dr. Morgan is a sought-after speaker for corporate, professional, and academic and faith-based engagement, where he uses effective value through his exceptional powers in transmitting relevant knowledge in leadership dynamics with fluid delivery. His content and style remains extraordinary, transformative, and contextually geared to contemporary excellence and best practices. Dr. Morgan is the president and CEO of Destiny Strategy Incorporation and is passionate about people organization and all things leadership. He holds a doctorate in leadership and strategic change and serves as professor and research scholar in multiple institutions of higher learning and professional body. Dr. Morgan currently serves as a board director with CMP. Can you please welcome Dr. Ebere Morgan?
Participant, how has the average Nigerian moved forward? How has the average Nigerian developed, grown to the place of significance and to the place of contribution to enable the Nigerian community advance its goals in terms of being strategic, in terms of being effective, and in terms of being prosperous? I heard when Isaac was speaking, our man was speaking, they talked about generational advancement. So the question is, how are we doing currently? It's 51 years we started coming into this country. What would you say, how would you rate where Nigerian community is in Canada so far? I'll start with our matriarch, who is sitting in the center there.
In my view, I think we've come a long way, because when, as you said, Nigerians started migrating here quite a number of years ago. And when I came over 3 decades ago, I met Nigerians who had been here almost 20 years. But the kind of things Nigerians were doing then is not what Nigerians are doing now. We now have new caliber of Nigerians here, people who could be reckoned with here. When we came, wonderful enough, we went to the north, and we had Nigerians, 2 Nigerians. There were 3 neurosurgeons. 3 neurosurgeons. 2 of them are Nigerians. We had a doctor, a neurosurgeon, and a pediatrician, another pediatrician, the wife, in the same city. We had, when I joined them, I was the only black lawyer in the city, so you could pick me out easily, you know. And now we have so many Nigerians who are lawyers, many who are doctors, accountants, and co. So I'm grateful that God has brought us a long way, but that's not where to stop.
Thank you. I don't know if any of our other panelists want to add to what she said. How have we fared in the last 50 years in your estimation?
I'll just add from the perspective of being as a second generation here. My father, my parents, when they came here, they had to start from scratch, as many first immigrants, first generation typically do. And when you're starting from scratch, you're in a sense crawling, and you're hoping that by the time the next generation is picking up from where you left off, they're walking, and then hopefully you've laid the foundation that the next generation will be able to run, and then the next generation will be able to fly. If you look at other communities over the last same 50 years, even if you just look at a city like Brampton, and you see who runs and owns that community, you will see that in less than 50 years, they've owned the city, the South Asian community. Now, one thing that it is certain within our community is that we're very knowledgeable, we're hardworking, and we have resources. But we can't see that from an institutional point of view, right? So I think over the last 50 years, as Madame mentioned, we've definitely grown in terms of intellect and individual wealth, but we're definitely still lacking behind other communities that hasn't been here as long as we have when it comes to collective advancements as a community.
I just want to pick up from where Isaac touched on, that we're lacking behind. Mr. Joshua, could you give us a little insight on what could be the challenges, the critical challenges that is causing us not to really advance at the speed that we should be attaining right now to gaining the critical mass that we need to be prosperous as a nation?
Okay, if you ask me, number one, I think I would like to put this in context. I've only been here about 11 months. So I am looking at this from the lenses of a newbie. In the past 11 months, I have looked around and I have interacted with quite a number of people in the Nigerian community. And I see that they've been able to achieve that balance individually. There's that individual balance. I'm doing well professionally, my business is good, my family is settled, I have some kind of influence within my immediate circles. But transcending beyond that into what we are talking about here, the first thing I think I would like to point out is we are very individualistic. Maybe it's part of our culture. I've spent all of my life in Nigeria, traveled only a few times. So I can see that we are very individualistic, right? it's in the news. So a couple of days ago, this might be a digression, but I think it serves to prove a point. So we know that the usual politicking, the manipulations and political schemings, they are going on in Nigeria currently. Atiku has chosen to pick someone from the south, as I mentioned. I can't remember the exact statement that he used, but we need to move beyond just thinking about myself, my family, my business, my career, my everything, to us, we as a community. I was reading The Jewish Phenomenon. It's a book, a very popular book, and it tells how the Jewish community is doing. Isaac talked about that as well during his speech. It's simply unbelievable. One, we are individualistic. Number two, I think that there is an inherent trust problem.
Very tight, critical issues we talked about before the creation of CNP was the fact that we have, as a community of people from a different country in Canada, we have what is known as silo system of doing things. We live in silos. When I came about 20 years ago, I noticed that people had this philosophy of let him suffer like I did, rather than stand on my shoulder and come with his PR and all. Some of us were, Ihama was talking about the 900 number. I used to have it. Yeah, some of you didn't have it because you came as permanent residents. It's a number you have. You can't get a full-time job if you have it. And some people I try to ask for help told me, you know what, you just came, why don't you go through the way I, learn the ropes. That I grew up in Canada, developed, and said to myself, nobody under my nose will come and go through what I went through. Rather, I'll have people on my shoulders see further than I am, that I did, and do better. So now, we need practical steps. This is one of them. What practical steps would you offer that would help us come up from this really depth to come at least to ground zero and start building upwards as a community of people? Isaac? Just one or two steps.
We need to create more small and medium-sized businesses that could last and collaborate, because through that we're creating and hiring ourselves, and through that we're spending money within our community. Other communities, like the Jewish community, when they earn income, it rotates at least 7 or 8 times before it leaves the community. But within our community, because we don't have enough other types of services, good services, we have a lot of lawyers, we have a lot of doctors, family offices, we have a lot of churches. So we know that money circulates a lot around churches, but after that, where else does it go? So if we have more small and medium-sized businesses, if we have more convention centers, because we're holding a lot of events, there's a lot of associations similar to this, holding similar type of events that I've spoken at. Alex, my brother, is holding an event at another hotel. If we have more small and medium-sized businesses, we'll be able to hire more individuals. One of my family members just came. He says he has a securities license because he's going to work at a security company and factory. And I said, well, what's interesting is that we need to hire a security guard. So after you work for their 3 months, open a security company, because typically that's the easiest type of job that most people get when they come here. They'll work for either a factory or quickly get their security license and work for a security company. But no one's ever thought of, let's just start a security company. And so I told him, call my brother, lawyer, register a company, start a security license, and anybody that you know that's coming, they can now work for your security company. And then you start building from there. When you go to an event, you don't just go there to party, you tell them next time I want to be able to do the security. So those little steps will go a long way, because then you start circulating money around the community.
Wow. Excellent. Let's hear from Mr. Abraham. Practical steps.
I think we need to, first of all, make up our minds to leave Nigeria in Nigeria. And what I mean by that is, don't try to limit what you have to yourself. Be open-minded. Give. When I was called to the bar, I was the only one. People saw my ad in Shepherd Guide. Oh, there's a Nigerian lawyer, and people came trooping. My office was open. There were times the noise in the reception, I'll be hearing it in my office. But at least people came. I bought donuts. People sat, talked and talked, forgot the refugee claim, forgot the problems, forgot everything. They had people to chat with and went on happy. I was also doing a lot of immigration then. I won't mention some big Nigerian lawyers now who started in my office. But that's what life is. My success doesn't disturb your success. Your success doesn't disturb my success. Let's be open. Let's be each other's brothers and sisters keepers. Aside from that, when you are willing to be a brother's keeper or a sister's keeper, remember that people will hurt you. And you don't be the one who will hurt. Let's stop taking each other for granted. It's unfair. If somebody is willing to have you, don't abuse that person's trust and emotions. It goes a long way, and it could affect several other people. So let's be kind to each other while we're trying to be loving to each other.
Room for another person to stand up, and that is because it's not a question.
Okay.
It's not a question. I just picked up from what you people said, and I want to say something about that. So if it's not a question, can I go on?
Beautiful, good perspective.
Thank you. Okay. For me, I hit the mic. Can I talk without it?
Okay, you're loud enough.
Good. Okay, so for me, I like to correct one notion, and that is that Nigerians are individualistic. I like to speak about that in context and in your location. By nature, we come from an extended family system. A lot of you probably grew up in families where our parents brought in people to live with us, and those people were treated better than us. I grew up in that setting where my parents brought in one or two people from the village, because that's the system Nigeria is about. It's extended. It's a communal kind of living. But once we step out of our borders, we start to live this individualistic type of life. There's a reason behind it. The reason is because some of us have been beaten and hurt over certain things. Now, trust is not something you want to earn from anybody. I should be facing this way. Trust is not something you want to earn from someone. I can't ask you to trust me. When I was getting married to my wife years ago, I asked her to expound that word from the dictionary. Just like he has 2 pages in his own dictionary, I don't have that word trust. Trust is not something I can demand from you. I can't force you to trust me. Like you, I've been here just barely a year. But I was living in a bungalow, and after 1 year, I said to the landlord we needed to move to something a little bit more comfortable. The landlord came to me and said, "You are very un-Nigerian." I said, "Why?" He said, "You've never missed your rent, you pay in advance." And I said, "That's not a compliment to me. Nigerians are not like that. We don't owe." I hate to be seen as different because my wife and I paid our rent when it was due. If I'd taken that as a compliment, oh yeah. No. I corrected him. I said, "Don't say Nigerians are not to be trusted. You've met the Indians that are not to be trusted. I have Chinese living in my property in Nigeria. I have problems with them. I've had Indians." It's not about Nigerians, it's about the individual. It's about that individual. So let's stop trying to earn trust. What you do earns you the trust. If you get into any community, if I come here to work, and I'll try to disabuse myself about something here. My wife asked me to be here. It's not a man ego thing. some of us are controlled by women. Yeah, every man will say no. Every man will say no. My wife made me come here. I'm happy and I love her more for that. That is just the truth. The reason why I didn't want to come here was because it's a Nigerian community. Are they setting this up for some financial gains? So I came here wary. I came here being careful. It's all about us. If they get it wrong, I won't be at the next Nigerian meeting. If I get that vibe that is wrong, some of us will pull out. Some people are opportunists. I'm not. My wife is not. So we're not individualistic. I like to drag Nigerians along. I like to drag anybody along. Let's transcend beyond thinking Nigerians are like that and find out why a few of us are like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for that. I think that was very good, and you actually touched on some of my points. By the way, this may not come, in the question form. Again,
You're in the right forum, so feel free to say what you want to say.
thank you so much. Having spent about 4 months in Nigeria, just between March and July this year, I realized a few things. By the way, I am the founder of Ontario College of Management and Technology here in Toronto. I realized a few things. We badmouth our country too much in front of other people. And everybody talks about Nigeria being, we talk about everything that is not good about Nigeria. But when you see a Jew, they don't just derogate their country. And if you look at the three nationalities that will never go to any country except something is happening there, Jews, Indians, and Chinese, they are in Nigeria. And they are doing very well. But when we are here, we don't really, lift our country, even though we have challenges, just as every other country. But how we actually talk about our challenges without putting our country down is very important. And you talk about how do we transition. A lot of us here like comfort, and comfort sometimes can be very synonymous with average. Now, somebody is doing something, you want to do the same thing. And if I want to become, for example, a business analyst, and I apologize to every business analyst in the house, so everybody becomes a business analyst. Nobody wants to take a risk. That, okay, you know what, I am a doctor, how do I transition to owning something? Nobody, God has never created anybody to be an employee forever. That I found out. At least to be the owner of your own thing. At least if you have it right. That's why I implore Isaac, who is into real estate and in doing business. How do we transition to that? It's the fact that one, we have to take certain risks. Indians, they occupy Brampton. When I wanted to buy a house, I went to Richmond here and I said, okay, so who are the people? They said, okay, there are some Germans here, Chinese here, Brampton for Indians. What about the Africans? They said, they are everywhere. which means we are underrepresented where it matters. And that we have to fix. Then we'll be able to have at least a good united Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. I have one more person.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's a comment. I really appreciate this forum. I want to appreciate those that started it. But I think what personally I believe is a solution, because I believe in solutions, is let this body start with a clear vision. And then when you create a clear vision to impact not only Africa, but the whole world, we will gather or attract people that resonates with you. You will gather people that are committed rather than interested. The truth of the matter is, like we have all shared, it's the problem of Africa is mindset. Because behaviors are driven by our beliefs. And most of us grew up in countries where we are told we are not good enough. We grew up being told that, who is going to listen to you? As a first girl child, I was told that I'm not strong enough. So I forced myself to be where I am today. I pushed myself even to study in a male-dominated field. But the point of the matter is limiting belief cannot just go away. We're dealing with Nigerians that have limiting belief. Even when they leave Nigeria, they come to abroad and have that belief. It's actually not something you can just remove. But going forward for this organization, you want to stand on a strong foundation, which is a clear vision that is purposeful. And then you begin to attract people that are already online with that vision. And then all these problems we're talking about are difficulties that our brother said is no longer a challenge, but excruciating pain that we're going to pull through. And then the solution is just going to appear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Lots of words of wisdom.
Okay. Thank you so much. Quickly, my question to the organizers of this event is, how do you intend to sustain the interest that has been shown? Believe you me, I've seen a lot of organizations birth with so much anticipation, and then suddenly everything fizzles out. What I saw here today is amazing. In fact, at the point I was asking my wife, look, didn't you attend something about Nigerian professionals sometime in downtown Toronto? What happened to it? She told me, oh, those were just professionals who were working in Toronto that came down to have some coffee or tea. I don't want to hear that. This one just came here to drink tea and drink coffee. Because the stakes are very high. Yes. The stakes are high. Believe me, the stakes are high. The stakes are high. We are finding ourselves in situations where parents will sell all they've got, all the wealth they've built, to send their school, their works to Aruba in Caribbean to go. They are studying medicine. After they study medicine, they cannot get any doctors in the house. How do you say? They can't get residency. You'll be jumping from pillar to post, from Aruba to US to Australia, just running around, all for nothing. Waste almost $1 million. So, how do we make sure that we are going to take advantage of this opportunity and pull everyone up? You that is a manager somewhere, you are hiring. The first person you hire is Oyibo. You are afraid to hire a Nigerian to do. This is the place, the marketplace to throw advertise jobs. Who is a PA in the house? Who is an accountant in the house? Who is that in the house? I am hiring.
Just a little digression. I am an accountant and I'm self-employed. In case you need to talk to an accountant.
Let me say something. I really wanted this to be more grounded. This particular segment of the event. But because of time, I'm just trying to see how I can use my latitude to spread. I'm going to speak. Our brother, that's my very good, wonderful brother. He had just made a warning. He doesn't want to hear. So we better make sure he doesn't hear it. All right? Okay, so let me see what he has to say quickly. And then after that, we come back to our...
Okay, we'll make sure you don't hear it.
You will.
Okay, here's what we can do as a simple step. And then I spoke about it. You see those feedback forms? Make sure you fill it, right? Complete it honestly. And then for the panel of organizers, get back and solve the problems on those fields.
I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right, thank you so much for the opportunity. So I'm also a new, I recently came to Canada as well. But I've heard a lot of people talking about how the forum can benefit them. That's what I've been hearing so far here. I believe we all have something to give back. I mean, if you're asking the executive members, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. I believe for you to be able to be seen, you have to be able to give back something. So I believe the avenue, if you have something, if you can volunteer, Like, I am ready to do that, and I believe that if everyone here could do something, that's when everyone will see what kind of skills you have, and then from there we can take it up, network more, and then we'll be able to help each other. But for us to just sit down and say, okay, this is what we want the executive to do, I think we can do more than that.
Thank you so much.
We have a lot of things we want to do, but sometimes we want people who can give us, bring in resources, bring in ideas, or help build that collaboration. I know that many people have done it. It's not always about trust, but sometimes I think it could be something about structure or something about, an organization. And what I'm really asking is, probably you could give advice, to CMP on how you think that we should start off with building those structures that will be able to leverage, for people to be able to leverage and be able to, empower and grow from there, in terms of whether they want to become entrepreneurs, in terms of whether it's to expand out businesses or things like that. How do we build that structure where some other people who have really done well in that sector will be safe, and will be able to bring in their resources and be able to bring in things to be able to help the other ones to be able to be established. So I'm just kind of looking for your thoughts and your advice on how you think that this community will be able to leverage the both of those worlds.
Okay, very briefly, let's, who want to go? Okay, let's have I see.
So the idea of trust, which has been mentioned a few times, I see it as trust is an excuse that people use when they don't want to admit what they don't know, that they don't know, right? So if you have a structure, as you mentioned, then trust is just a bonus. I trust this person, but most people in all communities that are doing business, whether they like the person or they trust the person, if there's a structure in place and they don't understand it, they try to gain education in that structure that they're trying to get into, in that business that they're trying to get into, in collaboration with somebody else. So if you don't know it, then it's better not to enter into it, so that if something were to happen, you then say, I don't trust that person because I didn't make the return or the success that I thought I was going to get. But you didn't know what the risks were before you entered. So it wasn't maybe lack of trust, it was just that it was lack of a bad business plan or a lack of a bad structure, right? So I think the key is understanding first off education. So if you want to start a business or you want to do an investment or you want to get into investments in any type of industry, the first thing is educating yourself, whether through a forum like this or whether just online or other different types of conferences that are on education on specific industries. And then a forum like this could now send out notice to those that have an interest in building a business in this specific industry or that specific industry. Before you even enter it, get educated. Otherwise, don't complain that it didn't happen at the pace you thought it was going to happen without having knowledge on how long it should even take, right? So I think that's been the issue with people doing collaborations. I see it all the time. They don't know how long an investment should take. They just assume it should take 1 year. It ends up taking 3 years. They complain, they say, I don't trust you, and the individual is not the reason why it's taken 3 years. That's the process. If you understood the process, you would know that it took 3 years, and it wouldn't be using the excuse of trust, right? So I think education is very important in all things that we do, and then once the education is there, it's laying out a platform for individuals that have interest in that specific education to partake in it. When we go to school, we learn, right? And through that learning is then we now try to apply to a job based on the learnings that we spent. We trusted in that instructor that they were going to give us enough information to be useful enough to use after we're done spending 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. If you don't understand the process going into it, then you're not going to say it takes 1 year to become a doctor. You would research and say, how long does it take? So an instructor can't tell you it takes 2 years, and then it ends up taking 5 years, and then you say, I don't trust that instructor. Right? Education is the key first.
All right. On that note, we're going to be ending the panel discussion because we're past the time we're meant to be in this room. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morgan. Thank you, our panelists. And just for closing remark and the vote of thanks, I'd like to invite Dave. Sorry, excuse me, can we please say, we're closing, please. If you waited